Today is October the 2nd, 2024, and this is a continuation of the How to Support a Collective When They Strike series, and this is the third video in that installation. I would also highly recommend that you review the Judgment series that I also posted. I did a video yesterday, and then I shared a compilation of the clips that I did on the Fani Willis disqualification hearings because they are relevant to some of the information I'm going to share. I've been doing some digging around on Harold Daggett today, and I am not going to review all of the exhaustive information that's available on the ILA Facebook page and YouTube channel. If you are a longshoreman or you have found your eternal partner and are the wife of a longshoreman or the husband, then it may be beneficial for your household and your family to do that yourself. And, more likely than not, as you just scroll these social media pages, things will stand out to you that will be worthwhile to spend some time reviewing or reading through or looking through. I don't feel the need to do that because I am going to share information that I did, some research that I did back in 2022 about the local ILA union here in Norfolk, Virginia, or in Hampton Roads. And I am going to share all of it, including all of the names that I compiled at that time. Some of those people may not even be in these positions anymore. And I didn't do anything else with it because as I continued to investigate all of the things that were concerning me in general, I realized that there was an easier way to do that. And that is to hit at the top because the ish rolls downhill. So if I get the main or the primary people at the top, then they typically will address the people under them as appropriate. And I knew that if I filed a federal lawsuit, that it would happen even quicker because they have a different way of dealing with people and getting rid of people who they believe might expose what they have done on their own that doesn't involve me. Which is its own justice for people who choose to stay attached to systems that they know are corrupt and that hurt people. So I'll leave that up to you to do further investigation about the other kinds of alliances that have been formed with Harold in this particular position. Again, I do this because it's usually not the people at the top who are able to collectively gather the workers, especially when you talk about an organization that is spread out across not only the country, but around the world. There are usually other people who are closer to all of the individual workers in any individual port or union, local office who do that, and many of whom are looking to the ones who are supposed to be the voice of all of the workers under them to advocate for what it is they need. So we're going to look at whether or not Harold has been doing that. With no disrespect to the members of labor unions themselves, I want to share with you a clip that I have included in the descriptions of these of this video series that I did back in 2022, I believe, about unions, and then to share with you the information that I have been looking for and I reference in this video because I did go and find it today. All right, I can't find it. I have looked everywhere for the entry, a very thorough entry I did on the local unions, because I wanted you all to really consider how stupid they are. And, I know that the reason why a lot of people join them is in part because their employers require it, that you have to join in order to be employed, and people need jobs, so they do it. But that's in contrast to the union that these quote-unquote artisans decided to get on board with to try to protect their own income, because they have been selling their gifts, their share, they've been selling their interest, they've been selling their good or their goods, they've been selling their service when they should have been helping. But anyway, so I'll use this entry to talk about that, or at least to highlight it so that you all will consider it. But you pay these unions to protect the employees, but the documents that I accumulated make very clear that the only people that are protected are the union executives themselves, and they expect you to pay into things like life insurance plans and scholarship plans, and they even have plans where you have to pay in case you become disabled, as a pool to support employees who may unexpectedly have a loss, and then together they can use this pool for that. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing. Like, what are you working for? It's like you working to pay the daggone union to protect you in case things happen that you should be able to pay for if you could keep all your own money. It's just something to think about. All of the officers of the ILA have bios on their website. What I want to highlight about Harold Daggett, based upon his bio, is that he is a father, a grandfather, and a great grandfather, which is 3 generations. But you cannot raise a lineage correctly if you teach them that it is okay to steal from people, or, not necessarily in the case of the Daggerts, to kill people. It is okay to teach your kids how to defend themselves should they be attacked in any way. But it is not okay to teach your kids it is okay to attack people in any way, shape, or form, whether that be economic, psychological, physical, emotional, any kind of attack. Harold is also a lineage union man and followed the footsteps of his own father, Harold Daggett Sr., who is said to have worked for the ILA or in the ILA industry for 57 years. Harold, as the current president, has a history of military service and even studied at a military academy when he was younger. Both of Harold's sons work in executive officer positions for the ILA. His son, John, is the General VP for the Atlantic Coast District, Vice President of the local ILA, and Port Administrator for the ILA Port of Discovery. His son, Dennis, is the President of the Atlantic Coast District and the President of Local 1804-1 of the ILA. Nepotism should never be an aspect of leadership. Part of the reason why it is important that nepotism not be the way that leadership is selected is because it forces children to believe that they have to follow a family history of a certain kind of service. And everyone comes with their own individual and unique gifts. So sometimes for those kids, they feel forced into positions and roles that they did not want, or that they do not want, but out of obligation to their family and to preserving whatever investment and inheritance has been grown through their lineage, they go into the same field as the rest of the family, thereby submitting their entire life and future of their own family to an ideal they do not believe in. The timeline for Harold Daggett's service to the ILA is significant and worth reviewing. And if you are interested, I would highly recommend going to the website to read the entire bio. But there is a significance to 2011 because it was in that year that he became president and both of his sons also stepped into executive officer roles for the ILA. This is one of many journals that I have from 2022. This particular journal covered the periods of May through June 2022. And these are the entries relative to the HRSAILA. The Hampton Roads Shipping Alliance and International Longshoremen Association is an umbrella organization Similar to the USMX, as you can see from their website, covers several different unions in the area. You can find the information in these entries on their website and in these plan documents. In March 2024, the Education and Workforce Committee Chairwoman, Virginia Fox, sent letters to several presidents of various union organizations. These private sector unions represent an estimated 7.8 million workers. Each letter highlights specific examples of recent corruption and requests information about the union's efforts to protect members from fraud, corruption, and improper accounting. In the letters, Fox writes, "The Committee on Education and the Workforce Committee is concerned about fraud, embezzlement, and corruption perpetrated by union officials. To ensure workers represented by labor organizations are shielded from malfeasance by union officials, the committee requests documents and information relating to efforts to protect employees and deter fraud, corruption, and improper accounting." The letters continue, "The committee is concerned by reports from the Department of Labor's Office of Inspector General and Office of Labor Management Standards highlighting significant fraud, embezzlement, and corrupt behavior by union officials. The committee is particularly concerned that over the past decade, OLMS has reported 725 federal indictments and 693 convictions of union officials and other union associates. The committee's oversight efforts on just a dozen private sector unions involve more than 3.2 million in embezzlement and 220,000 in bribery. The letters conclude by asking for a comprehensive description of the policies and procedures the union has in place to monitor and deter fraud, corruption, and improper accounting, including any third-party audits. A comprehensive description of the education the union provides its staff to ensure that proper accounting standards are observed for the oversight of funds, assets, and property for the national organization and for the local unions. An explanation of whether the union has an internal reporting mechanism, such as a hotline, for its members, staff, and whistleblowers to report any examples of fraud, corruption, or improper accounting. And a comprehensive description of any internal disciplinary policies the union has in place to punish instances of fraud, corruption, and improper accounting. Here is the letter to Harold Daggett, the president of the International Longshoremen's Association, from the Committee on Education and the Workforce, listed on the website. The Committee on Education and the Workforce Committee is concerned about fraud, embezzlement, and corruption perpetuated by union officials. And then if you scroll down, your union has experienced numerous recent examples of corruption. In 2023 alone, the union's local 1740 in San Juan, Puerto Rico, had 11 instances of corrupt activity. This included labor racketeering, converting funds, and falsifying records in the employee benefit plan. In February 2020, Glenn Bilch, the former president of the union's local 1964 in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey, was sentenced to 24 months in prison and ordered to forfeit approximately $150,000 in criminal proceeds for violating the Taft-Hartley Act by demanding and accepting approximately $150,000 in bribe payments from an employer. Mr. Bilch used the union members' money to purchase luxury items such as designer watches, custom clothing, tickets to sporting events, meals at expensive restaurants, and cigars. The committee has jurisdiction over legislation that protects employees from union mismanagement and corruption, including the National Labor Relations Act and the Labor Management Reporting and Disclosure Act. For the committee to determine unions' adherence to these important laws and to weigh the need for possible revisions to them or additional legislation, we are asking unions to provide the following information no later than April the 3rd, 2024. And then rather than reread what I've already shared from the homepage. The committee has jurisdiction over labor-related matters, and it shall review and study on a continuing basis the application, administration, execution, and effectiveness of laws and programs addressing the subjects within its jurisdiction as set forth in House Rule 10. The committee's investigation on this matter is within the committee's jurisdiction and is subject on which legislation could be had. This request and any documents created as the result of this request will be deemed congressional documents and the property of the committee. And then the information is given from Virginia Fox on how to submit that information. This is from the ILA website and is the master contract that just expired. So it started October 1st, 2018 and expired September 30th, 2024. All right, I'm just going to scroll this, so I hope you don't get dizzy. But I want to show you that I'm coming all the way down here. It took me a second because the language is a little bit confusing. Let me start with this table down here because that might help folks to look at as I scroll it. But I was trying to figure out during the last 6-year period about how much people were making. So here it says that the starting salary for a new worker, a new employee, is $20 per hour. And then if you read through, I'm not going to read through it because it's confusing. You really have to take your time with it. But basically what this says in section 1 here is basically you're going to get $1 an hour, $1 a year raise. You'll get a raise of $1 per year. And then once you have been there for 6 years, then it goes to these wage progression formula where it says on your second anniversary, you get 25% of the difference. In your fourth anniversary, you get 50% of the difference. And so in order to figure that out, I needed to understand, well, what is the highest wage rate? Because it says here under number 3 that employees who are receiving a straight time basic wage rate on September 30th of the prior contract year that is less than the highest straight time basic wage rate. So I'm like, well, what is it? And of course you can see here, it's $39 an hour. But if you start at $20 an hour and you get $1 raise every year, then it makes sense. That's, 2 6-year terms, you'll be at $39 an hour. So I don't, when you consider that the people who they are fighting against, UMSX, USMX, whatever it is, are losing, they say they're losing $4.5 billion per day from the workers every day that they strike. That's nowhere near. If you just do $39 an hour, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year times 45,000 workers, then that'll give you, at least a landing point to kind of consider the kind of money that we're talking about in comparison and why that's a problem. I mean, $39 an hour is a pretty good wage, but when you consider the cost of living and how much inflation has changed that just here in Hampton Roads, it's really not that much anymore. It used to be when it cost less for groceries and utilities and cable and, all the other things that we have to pay for now, but it's not really that much in comparison. So, you have to ask yourself whether or not the president has really been working for them and for their best interest. Just because the person who has been identified as the leader or spokesperson is the person that is in front of the camera does not mean that they are the people who have coordinated the more critical aspects of this strike and what it can do and should be intended to do for the good of not only the members of the Longshoremen Association, but for everyone, because of what is exposed as a result of them striking. If people will focus on the right things for the right reason, if they can see themselves in this as those workers, and because everybody wants the same thing, we're all fighting for the same thing. It's just that we have been fighting against each other instead of the few people who sit at the top who really need to be held accountable on these RICO charges that are hitting everywhere.